Hi, I'm Donnie Boobang, and welcome to yet another episode of Life Lived in Purpose. Now, today we'll be talking about the journey of purpose and being true to who God created you to be. Now, I wanted to talk about this topic because I know that for many of us as Christians, we actually tend to struggle a lot with accepting our unique abilities because of how society may see them. Now, race and culture can sometimes block God's vision and purpose for our lives because we have allowed them to shape who we are instead of allowing God's natural giftings to be what we actually gravitate towards. Now, everyone is uniquely made by God. There is something that each and every one of us brings that is just different. God made us with a unique fingerprint, and it's the same for your purpose. There is no difference. We have to love, honor, and treasure how He uniquely made us, and not what the world thinks is the best representation of us. With that being said, I want us to explore a passage of scripture that actually highlights our uniqueness and how God actually sees us. Psalms 139 verse 13 says, "For it was you who created my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you because I have been remarkably and wonderfully made." Now, God took the time and effort to create you uniquely. You can't ever be like anyone else, and nobody can be like you. Therefore, we should never allow the world to put us in all little tiny boxes as if there is a group that is more important than another. We actually see this in our careers, especially where more lucrative careers are seen, for example, like a doctor or a lawyer, that may be given more importance over careers such as being a musician or an artist. But here's the thing. God is no respecter of persons, especially within the Christian community. You're uniquely made with Him, whether you are a doctor or an artist. He didn't make a mistake with your identity, and that's why it is important to embrace who you are wholeheartedly and not allow the world to think differently about you. So for many of us, we tend to struggle so much with our identity, especially when it comes to our purpose. We actually fight against who we are ever so often instead of just embracing our unique gifts, talents, and abilities. Now, for instance, I'm going to put myself on the chopping block. I was always naturally a writer. I didn't realize that until now when I'm looking back at my life, and I understand why I was the way I was. I had the highest scores in the arts throughout high school. My writings were actually a part of who I was, and I love reading books, drawing, and everything that had to do with the arts. And that was from a young age. I would also enter art competitions, of which I pretty much won a few of them. And also in college, after coming to the United States, I was doing an English class, and my essay was the one that was pulled from the entire class by the professor to read because of how interesting she thought it was. But I didn't realize then, what I did now, that I was naturally gifted for the arts. Now, here's how my life got redirected. I pivoted in high school towards the sciences because society at the time placed so much emphasis on only certain types of careers being considered successful. That was either you go to become a doctor, lawyer, or professor. That was it in the box. There was not much emphasis on anything art related that you could do with your life. Anything art related rather was considered to be not good enough, you can't earn anything from it, and it's a waste of your time. There's no reason to go into that, or it's just something you want to do, your passion. had nothing to do with you earning an income from it, right? So I, like many others, I'm sure, and maybe this happened to you as well, choose from those categories just so that you could fit in. But you can't fit into something that God didn't create you to be. That's the point where we tend to forget. We can't fit into who we are not. So of course, I tried the sciences and had really lower grades in them than my arts grade. I didn't even like math, I'll be honest to you. But I struggled through them with, even more. And I did the same thing too at the university level. And I was barely able to make it through to my doctoral degree in pharmacy. I pretty much scraped through getting to that doctoral degree in pharmacy. I kid you not. Now, the struggle of trying to fit in who I was into a box that society actually had placed me in, it was difficult. It was hard. And I just couldn't understand why I felt so disconnected for years. I actually began despising the career I chose to do. But now, I'm going to give myself grace. I understand after years of rediscovering my identity with God that the reason why I felt so disconnected from life and my career was because I was not created to be that person I chose for myself. God did not create me, rather, to be a pharmacist. My gifts and talents were unique to the abilities of writing that I had. So my gifts, talents, and abilities, yes, they were not created for that box that society had me in. And until I accept that about myself and I took that detour to who I was originally created to be, I was miserable for a long time. So I know that many of you can relate, or you may be struggling right now in your career, your lifestyle, or anything currently that seems to be disconnected for you. But you have to now take the time to really understand who you are in order to understand how God created you to be. What are some of the gifts and talents that you know about yourself that you can highlight? Like if you were to put a microscope, put yourself under a microscope rather, what are some of the things that you notice about yourself that's just so different and unique about who you are? Do you see yourself in leadership positions or even gravitate towards leadership? Do you love the creative side of life? Are you curious about technology? Or do you find yourself gravitating towards music, helping people, being around kids? What's the unique blueprint that God has given you specifically that you haven't pulled out or brought to the surface about yourself? So here's another way to rediscover who you are. Look back at your childhood and early school years before you have had the most influence from society or even your parents. We have those parents and who are strong about your career choice. What did you want to become or gravitate more towards doing? Find those things out and explore them again with God. Seek answers for those gifts and talents that were evident in your childhood that you may have pushed to the side. I have a wonderful sister of mine who I remember when we were growing up used to sell gumballs from a gumball machine. My aunt had bought us all when we were younger. We were just so fascinated with this little gumball machine that she bought us. But my other sister, we would both eat oars, but she would sell these gumballs to the neighborhood kids and they would buy them because they were so fascinated with this machine that would dispense gum. And so life as an entrepreneur started with my sister, who actually is now in the process of starting her own company. She was naturally gifted by God to one day be an entrepreneur, of which she's now walking in that role. So explore yourself a bit more and really see who was the original version of yourself. Spend the time this week to look at your life from a microscope and see if there's a connection with where you were then and who you actually are now. If there is a connection, then try to understand what influence you had in your life, whether good or bad, that could have caused you actually to detour from God's blueprint for you. Did you have an influential person in your life that maybe discouraged you from pursuing a dream or goal that you may have had for yourself? Did you have maybe a negative person that discouraged you from a career that you actually love? Did you have a sense of failure or feeling of not being good enough a person, or that your goals didn't matter because you had to give up on a dream of yours for someone else? There's so many things that could have actually pulled us away from God's original design and intent for our lives. So there is so much more to explore about your life, about the people who influenced you, where you are right now. So after having done that, look at the dreams, the goals, and pursuits you had before and explore that with God again as your guide. Remember, whatever you ask God to do that will help you to get closer to your purpose, He will do it. There is no doubt about it. He will do it. Heaven wants every one of us to succeed and to move closer toward our purpose and destiny. So the whole reason why is that when you walk into your purpose and destiny that God has planned for you, your life is actually going to be an example to others for them to see how God works in your life, no matter what gift, talent, or abilities you have. And when they do, God can get the glory, and that we can also be the light, or His light, in a dark place. So God wants us to be scattered around the world in every different facets of our lives and careers. We can't all just be doctors, lawyers, and engineers. We have to be influential as Christians in every area of life. So God will have artists, teachers, basketball players, singers, actors, musicians, janitors, childcare workers, authors, speakers, event planners, entrepreneurs, and so forth. He is really, You're not looking, for one size fit all Christians in this world. The world can do that. He is looking for Christians who are already gifted with everything they need to live the life that He uniquely made us to live in unison with Him. So, here's my question for you. Will you be that one who dares to live beyond the world's perception of life, career, no matter what? Will you be the one who is willing to say, I will be true to myself. I don't care what the world is doing. I will be true to who God created me to be, and I will live the way He called me to, because that's how I will be able to influence the world for His glory. Look at that about your life and yourself and start making plans. Start detouring. If you haven't already, start looking at how you can now realign your life to God's purpose and plans based on your gifts, talents, and abilities to what God has actually called you to do and be in this world. So thank you once again for tuning into another episode of Life Lived in Purpose. Do also join me on my podcast at Life Lived in Purpose to listen to the episodes there as well. They're available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Castbox. Also, if you haven't grabbed any copies of my books, A Balanced Life, Moving from a Dysfunctional Life to a More Purposeful One, or I Am Who God Says I Am, always be inspired to live the life God has planned for you to live. Both books are available. They will also showcase my life, my gifts, my talents, my abilities, and how God was able to rediscover my purpose, my mission, my vision to something that He will use later on for His glory. So until next time, I do thank you once again for watching. Bye.